If you want to know the nature of reality, you can find it in a wrestler who goes by the name Triple H. Triple H. This tells you the hidden nature of reality right here. Just the fact that there's a wrestler named Triple H. Why am I saying this? Because the three H's stand for three places. Stands for heaven, hell, and here. Interchangeable. You could say H-E-R-E, or you could say H-E-A-R-E. Or sorry, H-E-A-R. You could say H-E-A-R or H-E-R-E. Here, here. But heaven and hell is here if you can hear. Heaven and hell is here if you can hear. So are we experiencing hell on earth? Absolutely. Are we experiencing heaven on earth? Possibly. See, that's optional, just like hell on earth is optional. It's optional. Because earth is an anagram for the heart. Same letters, just arranged differently. See, the earth is interchangeable with the heart and spirit speak. The earth and the heart are synonymous. They're interchangeable. They can mean the same thing in the same place. And again, they can sub each other out to provide more definition and more context to any given situation that those words are placed in. Either one of them. Earth is the heart. The heart is earth. Same letters. I used to listen to this group called Alice in Chains back in my college years. Just from being cool with different people in different cultures. So I had a white homie who I used to go to his shows. You know, he had a band. I used to rhyme sometimes with his band, and sometimes battle in the bands. They would like, yo, we like the MC. So I would just be rhyming up there through the sets while the bands just dueled off, and had a good time, made some good money. But this group called Alice in Chains, in particular, it was the album that had the three-legged dog on it. I think it was a pit bull, but on the cover there was a three-legged dog on this Alice in Chains album. And I want to tie this into the idea of the name Triple H and both heaven and hell being here now, to this song where Alice in Chains, they have a lyric that says, heaven beside you, hell within. This goes on in a lot of people's personal experience. For them, it is seemingly a hell on earth because there's a hell within. So H-E-R-E is the hell that they experience. They experience a hell that is here, but even more so a hell that is inside of them. So it's like heaven is around them, heaven beside you, hell within. But see, the context of heaven being beside you is this whole like guardian angel, or this silent omnipotent force that is called God, that doesn't necessarily intervene. This is the perspective that Alice in Chains takes on this album. It's not a divine agency that does any divine interventions, but it's just a divine watcher who simply observes but doesn't step in to intervene. So that is the tone that this group called Alice in Chains takes when they talk about heaven beside you, hell within. But for those of us who put this in a different context with a different tone and a different perspective, this can be the leading to something positive rather than a more so divinely nihilistic approach that kind of really underlines determinism all over again. But this is more like a person is going through hell, but because they have heaven right beside them to help, because they have the positive right beside them to help, they'll eventually climb out of their internal hell. They'll be able to climb out of it because of the seemingly heavenly influences that are around them. This is what the secret sauce is when we say you got to move out of your environment if your environment is bad for you. This is because if you're raised in hell, if you're born in hell, so to speak, a hellish environment, a rough neighborhood, a rough country, then to separate yourself from that environment won't necessarily take the environment out of you on day one. You'll still have the hell within that you experienced around you. But if you get around a heavenly environment, eventually that heavenly environment will enter in, and now heaven will be your internal and external environment. So it'll be heaven within and heaven around, heaven beside you and heaven within, rather than heaven beside you and hell within. That hell, you will have worked that out. You will have worked out the clephotic energies. You will have conquered the principles of the AntiVerse. So that's Triple H. And it's a wrestle. This is why Triple H is the name of a wrestler. Because we have to struggle with this thing. And we have to grapple with this thing. And in wrestling, there's locks, there's holds, right? And in that form of entertainment like WWE, you got chairs, you got ropes you could jump off, you got the turnbuckle, you got caged matches, you have Royal Rumbles, you have tag teams, you have Summer Slams, all of these different type of facets to point to the entertaining of the wrestle, of holding on, of being able to overpower someone without necessarily throwing blows, but just to outstrength them, to overcome them with strength. And to overcome someone with strength, with the absence of strikes, connotates endurance, stamina, not just strength, but endurance, because it's like tug of war. It's a wrestling match. You're not throwing a jab. You're not throwing a straight right hand that can end the fight in 1 second. No, you're grappling and you're wrestling and you're trying to put that person in a hold, and they're trying to put you in a hold, and you're both trying to pin each other where? To the mat, trying to get each other not vertical, but horizontal, laying down. To go on autopilot is like being pinned to the mat for the 3 count. 1, 2, 3. It's like being held down for the 3 count. Because a triangle has 3 sides, and a triangle is a delta, and a delta represents a demiurge. A demiurge represents a trinity represents a triad. Spiritual powers that govern demiurges operate in 3s. Triple H. Heaven, hell, and here. So here, right now, you're in the middle of heaven and hell. Heaven and hell are both here, but you are the HERE that's in the middle of it. You have the option to take one side in and push one side out. If you want to, you can ingest hell. You can ingest hell, and you can dispel or repel heaven, or you can ingest and intake heaven, and you can dispel or repel hell. But all of that is going to happen here and now. To wait for these realms to show up is to miss the idea of what is really happening. You have to use the fantastical imagery and sacred text and scriptures to point to very real things that are happening now. Because the things that are happening now are things that can be proven. You want to approach life not like a theologian, but like a scientist. A scientist is one who experiments with the materials given to he or she, to him or her. That's what a scientist does. A scientist doesn't use the building blocks of non-materiality any further than it takes to think and to ponder and to come up with a scheme. Those are the only non-material things that the scientist uses, versus the theologian. They're using all non-material. And you'd be lucky to find some theologians who would connect the two and would bring matters of immateriality into materiality so that your faith has legs. But often we would get the reverse. So hence this Triple H dilemma and this perpetual wrestling, right? Like the patriarch Jacob who, before his name was changed, he wrestled with an angel until daybreak. And even though his hip was dislocated by the angel, he decided, I'm not going to let go of the angel until I get what I came for, until I get the blessings that I expect from the angel, from the divine agency. So this is what it means to wrestle. It's to hold on. Can you hold on? Jacob didn't win the wrestling match, but he won what he came for. Jacob didn't win the wrestling match against the angel. Jacob is not Triple H. The angel was much stronger. The angel just, with one move, with one hand motion, wrenched Jacob's hip out of the socket. And to this day, it's a tradition amongst Jacob's people that that's the part of the animal that actually does not get eaten or really touched. The hip, the sinew around the hip, gets discarded for this very reason, that a man like Jacob, who was known as a trickster, who was clever, who was witty, who was worldly in his approach, he finally had to wrestle with divine agency when there was nowhere left to run. He had ran from Esau in the beginning after the birthright incident. He ran from Esau later, thinking and suspecting and anticipating that that Esau would not have forgiven his brother. So with the tension of that, you had Jacob basically on the run from his own brother, and you had Jacob technically on the run from his uncle Laban when it came down to the changing of the wages and how he, to get his own sense of footing back, switched out the different sheep that were grazing among the poplars, so that at the end, although Laban tricked Jacob regarding Leah and Rachel, Jacob would have the last laugh against his uncle Laban by doing this, what he did with the sheep and the livestock. And he set it up where all of the weak stock were given to his uncle and all of the strong stock he kept. And Jacob became a very wealthy man from this, but this was a run, not a wrestle. But later on, eventually, Jacob had to wrestle. Eventually, he had to step into the ring as Triple H. Eventually, Jacob had to deal with the heaven and hell that he was experiencing right there, right then. The same way we can't run from our problems forever, we have to eventually face the heaven and the hell that are entailed right here, right now. Super T Sigma, keep building.